All right, guys, we are live. 2024, the first recap show of the year. This is, of course, the Shillan and Duffy recap show live on sherdog.com. We are recapping UFC Vegas 84, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker card. I am two. I'm sorry, the second fight. That is right, Ben. He's given hand signals. I haven't introduced him yet. I am Keith Shillan. Joining me is the senior editor of sherdog.com, the man in Houston whose Houston Texans had just won a probably the biggest win in the franchise history, maybe.
100%. Yes.
He is Ben Duffy.
45-10 over the Browns. And you know what? I was multitasking, but when the Texans were down 14-10, I'm like, okay, I've lived in Houston long enough. I know how this song ends. And I could have turned that thing off. Scoring 5 unanswered touchdowns to win that game in a rout is not something that the Houston Texans used to do. But then again, they didn't used to have 2 of the top 3 picks in the draft and managed not to fuck it up somehow. So maybe it's a whole new ball game here in H-Town. But we got better things to talk about than that. We got the resolution of the rivalry between Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. And all I got to say is, you don't want to fight Magomed Ankalaev a second time because he stops playing around.
Yeah. I would want to fight him a first time, but definitely not a second time. As he has what he did it to Kudalaba, and then he just did it to Johnny Walker.
Yeah, like Paul Craig went down to 185. He's like, I don't want to fight that dude again.
Like, Yamaha was just somewhere saying, yeah, let's not do that rematch. Obviously, he's referring to Magomed Ankalaev knocking out Johnny Walker, hit him with a beautiful right hand, knocked him back into the cage, follows up with a punch. Johnny Walker continues to get knocked out in the most spectacular ways possible.
I mean, he goes down like a Jenga puzzle. Like, he's just all long limbs and stuff. So he goes down into this just pile of long pieces. He looks like the end of a game of Jenga. Or like a ruined drawbridge or something. It is fun to watch the dude get knocked out.
Shout out to all the guys in the chat, guys and gals in the chat. Apologize that we haven't mentioned you guys yet. We'll try to get to as many of your comments as possible. Big shout out to Big Marcel coming in here. Of course, Big Marcel watching the beginning of the show. We're talking about football, and he's probably like, dude, it's 5 a.m. here, and they're talking about the
American football
that only America cares about. So, we watched this fight. Johnny Walker started off well, doing his thing. He's moving well. He's kicking. He's kind of like almost trying to bully Ankalaev.
Mm-hmm.
Hard kick, spinning wheel kick, pushing him back, just doing all this.
Sorry, Tofu Buck's killing me. Like, just he needs to be out, Johnny Walker out in front of a T-Mobile store on a Saturday. Like,
yeah, that was pretty good. Good job, wacky arm, inflatable tube-man. Nice job. So he's doing all this. I mean, he fights that way too. He fights like the noodle the noodle toys that you start whacking your sister with in the pool and shit with those long arms and stuff. So he's doing that, and when I'm watching Ankalaev, and I'm like, Ankalaev is not just a MMA fighter. Like, the way he fought Johnny Walker, it's like a movement. Like, Walker's doing all this big stuff, and he's bigger than him, he's faster than him, he hits harder than him, he's more athletic than him. And Ankalaev just, nothing bothers him, nothing phases him. He just slowly takes the ground, calf kicks, takes the ground, jab, block a big high kick, take the ground, jab to the body. You know what? Like, I am completely convinced. Like, if you like, I don't know, my analogy sometimes I don't even understand them, but like, if you're at a bar and you're mixing drinks and someone's like, yo, let me get this. And they got these like different flavored vodkas and these fancy like named drinks. Like, that's Johnny Walker.
Ironically.
Yeah, ironically. Ankalaev is like gin and tonic.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely an old man drink. It's like, he's a
Yeah,
gin and tonic, you know,
like
he's,
just straight whiskey, just
yeah.
straight whiskey.
Again, ironically.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He goes to the he goes to the gym, and Johnny Walker is like, like I go to Planet Fitness and there's like a whole room full of plyometrics things with like bands and like there's some guy like jumping on a box and there's another guy doing squats on like a half a yoga ball as it's shaking and shit. Right?
Yeah.
Ankalaev is just freaking on the bench press. Never gets just bench press, nothing else. Like that's what he's the old school, just nothing fancy, just gets it done. Goes to the bar in like a t-shirt, but it's just like blue. Like
Yeah.
it's a single color t-shirt, no logo on it. Like that's Ankalaev.
And that's a good analogy for, well, the fight style Walker brings and how Ankalaev responds to it. But in this fight, there's also a bit of that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where the guy comes out with the saber and does this really
Oh
elaborate flourish, and then Indy just kind of looks at him and pulls a gun and shoots him, and everybody like, goes, ah, and runs off. Because
yeah.
he wasn't phased by any of it. And it's not just wildness and distraction. Dev, shout out to Dev who joined us in the chat. Dev pointed out that Walker actually was setting himself up for his best chance to win, because his best chance to actually win this fight was one huge shot at distance.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
one head kick or spinning elbow as Ankalaev's going the wrong way. He drops like a sack of potatoes and Walker wins. I mean, whatever you think the chance was, whether it's 5%, 10%, 30%, Walker was doing the right thing. It's just a goofy thing, and he could probably do better.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Like, I had no issue with what Walker was doing. I mean, he's outmatched. To me, he's that kid at the wrestling tournament that he's outmatched. And instead of going like, "Hey, I know the coach says like don't go for a headlock, but this guy's bad at me. Fuck it, I'll throw a Hail Mary." Like, yeah, why not? Instead of like wrestling, trying to do like singles and doubles and just getting beat, and let me ask you this quick. I think this is going to be one of our quickest shows because I think the card was a good card and there was, some fun action, but there's not a lot of storylines, and the recap show is mostly storylines. It's a lot of reacting what we did, what we saw, but it's a lot of projecting the future.
Agreed.
And I mean, when you have Jim Miller, I mean, say what you want about Jim Miller, but I have a lot to say about him, but it's like, we're not projecting to win a title or something,
No.
Walker's in that position. He's done so much. Who is the best 205-pound fighter in the world
right now?
Right now, if you had a tournament, you have Walker in there. You got Alex Pereira. You got Jamal Hill. You throw in.
You bring in a couple of the best guys from other promotions. You bring
Bellator
in
guy. What's his name?
Yeah, Vadim. You bring in Vadim Nemkov.
Vadim
You bring
Nemkov.
in Rainer de Ritter from one. You bring in the best. You put them in a 16-man tournament. Obviously, it's going to depend some on matchups because there are very few really well-rounded fighters at 205, and even some of the good fighters don't have great fight IQ. But I think Ankalaev is probably my odds-on favorite to win it.
Yeah, it's tough based on who's beat who and this and that. But my one argument, like I'm looking at the chat and most people are saying Ankalaev or Nemkov, and obviously that's a little unfair to, we have a current UFC champion in Alex Pereira. We have the guy who was a champion, then got hurt, gave up his title, and Jamal Hill. And God, when you have a serious injury like his, who knows what?
Yeah.
The way he's been looking.
We got two guys like that. We had Yuri Prohaska about to take another fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, he never lost it in the cage.
No, well. I mean, he did lose to Pereira, so his claim is kind of not there. But
okay.
No, I know what you were saying. My one issue with Nemkov is he's good. Obviously, he's good, but who is he beating? Like, he's beating old guys. He's beating Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, Yoel Romero. There's nobody.
I think Phil Davis, even now, is probably the most underrated light heavyweight of this era of like the last 10 years.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's the best of Nemkov's wins.
Or Bader. I think
one or the other, but I think Bader is more washed and an easier matchup for Nemkov. Dude, why are we talking about Bellator right now? I'm sorry, this is my fault. I went
no,
down
no,
this
no,
path.
but no, the point, yeah, and a lot of people are saying Corey Anderson. Could be Corey Anderson. Yeah, that's fine. Corey Anderson. There's another guy, but like another older, not as old as Bader and them, but he's up there in age. Yeah. Corey Anderson might be his best one. That's fair. The whole point that, like, to me, it's that category, and the reason why we're talking about Bellator is simply when you, other than maybe 135, I know there's a lot of people argue over Patchy Mix being the best bantamweight. Outside of the UFC, 205 is the strongest argument for anybody to be the top guy other than the UFC champion. But I don't know if the UFC, I don't know if the UFC champion or that guy is the best. I'm with you, man. I think Ankalaev is the best.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody. I can't see anybody being favored over him right now.
No, I don't think anybody. And shout out to the people that are really going to bat for Corey Anderson. Like, if I thought about it for another minute, like, yeah, Anderson is the guy outside one of the guys outside the UFC that has the best shot, because he was borderline top 5 when he left. No, I agree. I don't think any of them would be more than a pick'em or close to pick'em against Ankalaev. That includes Hill, Prohaska, any of them.
Corey's 34. He's actually he is younger than I thought. I thought
yeah, 34 is probably dead prime for a light heavyweight.
Just look old, fights old, talks old.
Well, he was beast in 25-8. That'll age you, prematurely. Yeah. That's aging him about 11% faster than.
We've joked about like Amanda Hebas being my neighbor and have fun. Like Corey Anderson was my neighbor. Like, we meet at the mailboxes and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And I talk to him for a minute. I just feel like every conversation would be like, "Okay, bud, see you, man." Like, or like, I'm gonna go to my mailbox. Oh shit, Corey's out there. Like, no, just I don't want to talk to the guy. He just seems boring. So because of the situation in the UFC, the 205, you have Jamal Hill. I don't know how soon he's going to be back, but he's talking like he's coming back real soon. He wants to fight Alex Pereira next.
Obviously, this is totally conjecture. It's speculative, but they did several close-ups of him tonight, and he looks like he's starting to slim back down.
And fairness, he couldn't get any bigger. I mean, he might have had like a New Year's resolution like the rest of us, and been,
Well, yeah, I would no longer turn my camera sideways to take a picture of him.
he can fit in now.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation for Ankalaev because if they do the Pereira fight, which Pereira versus Jamal Hill, you kind of have to. You have that. If Jamal Hill's ready, you have that looming over the division that, like, you're not really the crown champion until you beat the guy who didn't lose the belt, kind of thing. But if you're Ankalaev, why would you even take another fight?
Especially because you're Ankalaev, because there's no such thing as a straightforward, winnable, stay busy fight for Ankalaev. This is still the guy who, to quote myself, looks like he would cross the street to step in dog shit sometimes. Just weird stuff has a way of happening to this guy.
Yeah.
But if he has to take a fight, there's no shortage of stuff going on out there. Like,
yeah.
I mean, do we want to talk about possible matchups?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about his on luck for a second. I mean, we mentioned on the preview show, but we'll mention again. I mean, the Johnny Walker thing put him back. I'll fight. Having to fight Johnny Walker twice. The John Blachowicz, when many people thought he won the title, should have won the title, gets a draw, and then they don't even run it back. They just go, "Oh, neither one of you guys win. Nope, you're not in." It felt, what it was? It was Kale Uno beat J Penn too, all over again, where they fought for the lightweight title. Neither guy won, and they just said, screw it. The Kudalaba fighting Kudalaba twice, and then even the Paul Craig. Like, imagine what one more second, if he doesn't tap with 1 second left, where he would be right now. How much that 1 second loss put him behind by not having that undefeated record.
He might not be champ right now, but he would have been champ at some point before now because he would have had a title shot like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
And he would have had a fight. He would have had a shot against someone like maybe Jones, but at worst, he would have fought someone like Teixeira. You know,
I was thinking
the title.
I'm thinking Glover Teixeira. I'm thinking they're not calling up Jamal Hill to fight Glover Teixeira, or they're not giving Jan Blachowicz to fight against Glover Teixeira. You know, or actually, it was Glover Teixeira against Blachowicz. But you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, he would have been the guy to fight Izzy at 205.
Ugh. Izzy wouldn't have tried to go up.
No, but think about but think if they're both undefeated. How much? Think of how big the Jan Blachowicz fight was. Imagine if Ankalaev was undefeated and Izzy was undefeated.
Oh, and like
he was at that time.
The talker against the big Dagestani bully, they would have been like, we're going to try to make this into light heavyweight Conor versus Khabib, even if Ankalaev wouldn't be carrying the Khabib side of that very well. But yeah.
All right, so let's talk about matchups. You're running the UFC. What do you do? I mean, someone was in the chat saying, you know, conflicting reports about Jamal Hill, how soon he can come back. You know, the broadcast today was talking about him asking for a shot. But I mean, if he's talking summertime, like Ankalaev didn't take much damage. Pereira's been on the sidelines for about 2 months now.
If Hill is not ready to go, I do Ankalaev versus Pereira next.
Yeah, totally agree.
If Hill is ready to go, then I offer Ankalaev the option. One, you can wait. We know your deal, dude. Let's just, or if you really want to take another fight, if you want another paycheck, if you just do better when you're in camp and have a goal to prepare towards, then fight maybe the loser of Ulberg and Reyes or the winner of Ulberg and Reyes that are fighting in like 6 weeks or so. Or actually, it's more than it's like 2 months.
Yeah,
there's not much.
I mean, I mean, I guess he could take on Yuri Prohaska, Alexander Rakic winner, but aren't they fighting?
They're fighting even later. They're fighting in April.
Oh, they're fighting UFC. Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, because now you're talking about
like the soonest, like even a top 20 contender is available would be Ulberg and Reyes. Like it's almost title shot or wait for the guy.
I'm tired of is saying a Jan rematch. Maybe do that, just get that over with. Luke Wilson is saying, I hate this idea, but he's saying I can't imagine this. Do Ankalaev I'm assuming he's saying Ankalaev fighting Pereira as a UFC headline for UFC 300. I can't imagine Ankalaev main eventing UFC. UFC 300 is not looking like, you know, what everyone expected to be. And I some of it, I actually don't blame the UFC. They are in a need of stars right now. And there is no stars right now in the UFC. You know, maybe O'Malley, but they booked him earlier in the year, which they could have waited. But O'Malley didn't have the B side. You have Marlon Vera. That's cool. There's some history there, but he's not that B side. And you have Islam Makhachev. I mean, really, to me, it was only Makhachev's the only guy. I mean, Makhachev, Gaethje, I guess. You know, you try to market the undisputed champ versus the BMF as headlining UFC 300.
Yeah,
I know the people talked about friggin' Khabib coming back and Ronda and Brock and all that. Brock ain't coming back. Ronda ain't coming back. George St. Pierre ain't coming back. I know there was rumors about Nate Diaz. Obviously, that's not happening now. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked. I'm sorry. I didn't say I'm getting sidetracked. I apologize. Yeah, if I'm the UFC, the bigger fight to make to me is Jamal Hill. It's a more marketable. Ankalaev is not as marketable. You know, sometimes he can be really boring in his fights. He can be extremely boring on the mic, obviously. But I think they're gonna have no choice. I think they're gonna have to do. You know, it's not like, you know, Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira is this all-time great promotion. You know, that they can't do. they can still do champion versus the guy who really can argue he's the champion because, you know, if Bahia beats Ankalaev, you still have it, and if Ankalaev wins, no, he's the champion and he has the claim, so you can kind of do it anyways. Yeah. How about this? We never do this. Prediction. What do you think happens?
I think they wait until Hill is ready to go. Like, I think the next light heavyweight title fight has Jamal Hill in it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's what's going to happen, unless UFC 300, unless they do this, unless they go, we're not going to have the star. We're not going to have the Connor. I see people talking in the chat about UFC 300 in the middle of Ramadan. I don't have confirmation on that. I don't know if that.
Ramadan ends on April 9th. So UFC 300 is 4 days after that. So it wouldn't be
Not
during
ideal.
Ramadan, but he'll be trying to cut weight during Ramadan, which ironically would be much more difficult. You would think, cut weight while fasting, but no, that's not how it works. Yeah,
you don't have energy. And he's a guy who cuts weight a lot. So
yeah, he's huge.
Islam's out. I know people saying that Javier Mendez has already confirmed that Khabib's out. I didn't think Khabib was a real story, anyways. I really don't see Khabib again. I really believe he's a guy that he says something.
I believed him when he said it.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, so if they do, I could see them saying we can't have the star. So what if we just stack it with names top to bottom all the way? Like, yeah. And it has like remember that movie Crash?
Yeah, I remember it.
It's a great movie.
Sure.
I think it won like movie of the year.
Yeah, it won the Oscar for movie of the year.
It had a whole shitload of friggin' like big movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't have the elite of the elite of the elite. They didn't have Tom Hanks. They didn't have Leonardo DiCaprio. They didn't have Tom Cruise.
It's what they call an ensemble cast.
Yeah, like huge names. I'm not trying to talk shit. And some of them became even bigger names afterwards. Mm-hmm. Maybe they do that. Like we don't have Connor. We don't have John Jones. We don't have the guy that carries it all alone. So we just give you everybody else. We don't have the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, but we're giving you
Ludacris, since we're talking about Crash.
Yeah, we're giving you Ludacris. We're giving you Snoop Dogg. We're giving you, I don't know. I can't go that far in rap, but you get my point.
Yeah. Well, I just mentioned that because he was in Crash. Like, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Johnny Walker. Do you think he should move to heavyweight?
Yes.
Agreed.
Like, of course you should. It's like the same as if you would ask me about any women's 135-pounder when Amanda Nunes was still at 145. Like, I harped on it every time one of the bigger ones of them fought. I was like, Amanda Nunes is at the end of both of these paths, but you only have to win one fight over here. Over here, you have to win 4, and one of them is against probably Raquel Pennington or someone that's going to make your life miserable. Go take the path of least resistance. Move up to heavyweight. I thought it was funny that I think each individual UFC analyst said at least once, like talking about Fitz, Felder, and Bisping. Each of them said he's gigantic for the weight class. No, he's gigantic for any weight class. He's the second tallest fighter in the UFC after Volkov. He has the biggest wingspan in the UFC, and his walking weight is probably above the heavyweight average in the UFC. Like between camps, I bet that dude walks around at 250 pounds. He's big for any weight class. Yeah. Like move up.
Yeah. I'm going to pause on my comment to that. I 100% agree with you. I just want to comment on David Aswell. He said, hey, UFC 300 has Bo Nickal. What else do you need? All joking aside, he's the biggest name on the card right now. Not the best talent. I mean, but like he's the one that's going to get the most clicks during fight week interviews, I think. I don't, right now, depending on who they add could change that. But, to me, it comes down to what Walker thinks he is. If he thinks he could win the title, like he still thinks he's a UFC champion, then okay. I would stay at light heavyweight because I still think it's an easier. The Ankalaev's the best guy. And that's a tough order. But And yeah, I don't know. I just don't see him as a UFC champion either. But I'm trying to think.
Here's
I
the
still
thing.
think it's. I think he has no prayer against Tom Aspinall. I think he has no shot
Oh,
against Pavlovich. I think he has
dude,
no shot
Cyril
against
Gahn would make him look silly.
John Jones. Like I
Yeah.
think he has no chance against those guys.
But I favor him. Like, if Johnny Walker says my next fight is at heavyweight, I think he's immediately probably like the 7th best heavyweight in the UFC. And I
Yeah.
would favor him heavily against pretty much everyone behind him. Like,
Yeah,
dude,
that's fair.
I think he would starch Andrei Arlovsky.
Oh my god, yes he would. Yes he would.
Like, he would do against Arlovsky what he tries to do against everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
But
if Arlovsky could get Johnny Walker to not move around and not fight, like that would be really some voodoo shit. Yeah,
well,
I agree.
then they need to move him to like a place that gets a lot of earthquakes and just have him save lives by being there, because clearly just shit doesn't move when Andrei Arlovsky is in town.
So yeah, that's why I agree with you. Like I think he's 7th or 8th best light heavyweight. I think he's 7th or 8th best heavyweight. You might as well not cut weight. Like if you're gonna be in that same range, why not make it life a little easy? Eat some.
Yeah, eat some carbs.
Yeah, get some grinders in you, and you know,
get better card placement.
Yeah,
like if he moves to heavyweight, he's probably fighting on the main card every time out.
Yeah,
he'll be the obligatory heavyweight slobber knocker every time out.
Give me a matchup for him at heavyweight.
At heavyweight,
we'll do both. We'll do heavyweight and then we'll do light heavyweight. I'll let you go.
Say he had fought tonight at heavyweight and lost in like a kind of top level fight. Or no, hell, if he says his next fight is at heavyweight, I give him kind of a middling dude who's been winning a lot of fights, but hasn't really, really been tested. Like maybe Waldo Cortez Acosta that just fought tonight. Give him one of those guys. Either because you can't really give him a washed guy on the way down, because the washed guys just kind of stick around and stick around and stick around forever.
Yeah, I got one for you.
Okay.
How crazy is this? Main event of a fight night. Johnny Walker, Derek Lewis.
Oh my goodness. Like,
come on, Dad.
And they would say some outrageous things. The fight itself would probably be a blast.
Yeah, like Derek Lewis would say some shit like, "Wait a minute, I'm fighting some guy. I thought I was getting Johnny Walker. I thought it was like a sponsorship deal or some shit. What's going on?"
But that's not what's going to happen. If they're just going to recycle some name. Like if he says I'm moving to heavyweight, no, the UFC will be like a bad magician. They'll be like, note that there's nothing in my hat and nothing up my sleeve, and then they'll pull Junior Dos Santos out of their back pocket. Like, where did he come from? I thought he'd been gone for 5 years. Just something like that, you know. Just
Crypto Lando's talking shit about Bo Nickel. Says nickel will never become a dime. No, but a nickel's bigger than a dime. That's the best I could come up with.
Yeah. Well, since your name is Crypto Lando, I will say that when our society and financial system completely collapse and all we have for our coins is just how much base metal is in them, you'd rather have a sock full of nickels than a sock full of dimes.
That's true. All right, let's do light heavyweight. I think I got the perfect name. Give me Johnny Walker, Cleo Roundtree.
I think Roundtree deserves better. I think Roundtree, having won 4 or 5 in a row, is closer to the title picture than he's probably closer to the title picture than Walker's ever been. I think Roundtree deserves better than that. The problem for Walker is he's fought a lot of people. He needs at least a somewhat name. I was thinking the loser of Olberg versus Reyes, assuming that's probably going to be Reyes versus Walker. Loser leaves my television screen.
Yeah, Dominic Reyes. Oh my Lord, that poor guy. Like, he's gonna get absolutely freaking stuck. No, wait, isn't that fight canceled? Didn't Reyes get hurt? No, Olberg. So Olberg got hurt.
Oh, really?
Olberg got hurt. Reyes is fighting
Dominic Reyes. Give him Dominic Reyes.
Yeah, I think Marcel is talking shit about Cleo Roundtree.
I'm going to address this one,
dudes. That's why.
Well, and it's not even that I'm high on him. I'm not super high on him, which is almost why I want to give him the push now. Like, you're never going to have a better chance to see what Khalil Roundtree can do than right now. Like, by all rights, he shouldn't have won this many fights in this dominant a fashion. Like, why mess around with it? You're in a division where you're absolutely starved for contenders who haven't already gotten to the top of the mountain and not made it. Why waste Khalil Roundtree letting him lose a meaningless fight? Push.
Okay, so I just looked it up. No, they actually that fight is still on. It was supposed to be at this next pay-per-view, and it actually got pushed to March.
Okay.
So it's at the Atlantic City. So Canada's loss is Atlantic City's gain. And
Luke Wilson's gain. I think Luke said he might go to that Atlantic City card. So
nice. I've never been to Atlantic City, even though it's not that far from me. I need to go someday. Yeah, shit.
It was kind of halfway between you and me when I was growing up on the East Coast. And I was there a few times. I'll have to tell. It'll be story time with Ben. I'll tell when I went there to try out for Jeopardy. I'll tell it maybe on the next preview or something.
You know what? When we preview that,
the Atlantic City card, yeah,
we'll have to do it Jeopardy style.
Like, I love that. All right, we'll do that.
You got to answer it as in a question. All right. Like I said, I think this is gonna be a quicker recap show for us. Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez. Probably one of my worst picks tonight. I actually picked Gabriel Benitez to beat Jim Miller. Shame on me. Jim Miller wins by third round sub. He was winning the entire fight before that. Jim Miller isn't human. I mean, just to fight in the UFC 43 times, every time I hear it, I'm like, no, that can't be possible. Like, I know I got the most appearances.
And this was his 45th. He was 25-18 with one no contest. He already had 44 fights. This is his 45th.
That doesn't seem possible.
It does not seem possible. And yeah, he's aged. Like, he's not the guy he was when he was 26, 27, but he's not completely fallen off the shelf. And he's adjusted to it and coped with it and developed a different approach in a way that has allowed him to stay effective in a way that this just doesn't happen at 155. Like, we've talked about people like Arlovsky, like Alistair Overeem, people that made adjustments and found success late in their career, but they were in heavier, less skilled divisions. This shouldn't be possible at 155.
Yeah. It's crazy. And like you said, to me, he looks as good as he has in a really long time. I mean, he's on a nice run. I mean, this fight alone, yes, he didn't kill, he didn't beat the world killer or anything like that, and world beater or something like that. But he and Benitez is much older than you think too. But he's pressing the action. His cardio suddenly is like resurrected. Like, what happened with that? He's getting third round finishes. Before it was like, okay, if you can survive early, you can take over. That's not the case anymore. He wins the kicking battle, the leg kick battle, which I didn't expect. He still has some pop. And I think he was breaking Benitez. I think he was breaking his spirit. And
agreed. And I think in a big way, he was breaking it on the ground. He was winning transitions, coming up in better positions, throwing mean ground and pound every time he got the smallest opening. And by the third round, Benitez was not happy to be there anymore.
No. So yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, because Miller won the first round. The second round was becoming a lot more competitive, and it almost seemed like the tide was starting to tilt and going towards Benitez. Like, Benitez was starting to have some success, and then Miller just took him down. And once he took him down, he smothered him. He died. And then it almost felt like Benitez was kind of fighting to make it to the finish. And then when Miller had his back, he tapped him. And one thing I hated, I don't know if you caught this, when Benitez got submitted, his reaction seems like to me like he was just like, all right, dude, this guy's better than me. He taps and he gets up and he starts like laughing and smiling about it, and like they're talking to each other about what he was doing. And it's like, I hate that.
Agreed. As the great American general and general military philosopher George Patton once said, "I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed." Less
nice. I think of that's a good quote. Let's show you how much more. Yeah, it's gonna show you how more sophisticated I am. I was thinking when you said that was the Game of Thrones when Jon Snow meets Corrin Halfhand,
Yeah.
and he said, I'll gladly die for the cause," and he's like, "I don't want you to gladly die. I want you to die kicking and screaming and like fighting to the death, all the way to the end."
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, I've been writing Jim Miller's eulogy for 5 freaking years now, and and probably the next time he fights someone, I'm going to pick the other guy, and I'm going to say his body can't hold up. He can't be this good still, and I'm going to be proven wrong again. And I don't know if I've ever been more wrong about a guy and been so happy about being wrong about a guy.
And I'll say that on previews occasionally. Like, we're disagreeing, but I hope you're right. Completely agree. Every time I pick against Jim Miller, I not so secretly hope I'm wrong. And I'm with you. I've been writing his eulogy. He's been on the way out. He's been in the decline of his career for the entire almost 4 years that you and I have been doing these shows together, and then some. It's almost like not only is the eulogy still in my hand when I expected it by now to have been used, but a bunch of stuff is crossed out and different details are added. The scouting report on him is different. I thought I was so clever in like 2019 when I was like, well, all Jim Miller has now is a good guillotine and 7 minutes of cardio. And then he started knocking people out in the first round and like running him into the ground in the third. He's a man transformed.
All right, I want to give you some moments. So he had this, you go through his. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. But he had these huge runs, like around UFC 128. He was on a 7-fight winning streak. That was probably like the top of his career. But then he ends up losing to Benson Henderson. But anyways, there was one run where people probably started writing his eulogy. He lost 4 out of 5. This is between July of 2014 to March of 2016. He lost to Donald Cerrone, but Neil Dariush, beat Danny Castillo by split decision, lost to Michael Chiesa, lost to Diego Sanchez. But I could see the argument. Like, yeah, he lost to studs at that time. Like, Diego Sanchez was still a stud at UFC 196. Okay. Wins 3 fights. Good names. Takanori Gomi, Joe Lozon, Thiago Alves. Then loses 4 in a row. Dustin Poirier, Anthony Pettis, Francisco Trinaldo, Dan Hooker. I know Trinaldo's not the biggest name, but then that's not a bad loss.
At the time, Trinaldo was one of those nobody wants to fight him dudes. Because he was so good and so nondescript and was such a grinder. Yeah.
Then he wins some, lose some, anything. But this is the stretch where it was like, okay, he is done. Like this is the one where I'm like completely convinced. 2020, not that long ago. I mean, 4 years ago, but loses to Scott Holtzman by decision, beats Roosevelt Roberts by an armor. I remember thinking like, what a terrible loss that was for Roosevelt Roberts at that time.
Yep.
Loses to Vince Pichel at UFC 252, and then loses to Joe Selecki in April of 2021. That's when I'm writing that this guy's done.
Yes.
Since then, he has won 5 out of 6 fights. This guy's not human. It's freaking incredible.
He's not human. And here's the other thing. There's no smoke and mirrors. There's some times when a fighter gets a third act to their career where, okay, this has really been dependent on matchups. Like, it's not luck. He's beating the people in front of him, but like this is a house of cards. We talk, again, Arlovsky, Overeem, Shogun. Here, there's none of that. Nobody's saying that Miller's a top 10 fighter, but he's fighting good mid-card guys, and he's beating them convincingly with, again, no smoke or mirrors. It's absolutely remarkable. It's honestly kind of inspiring. Like, I'm not so jaded that I can't say, okay, this guy defying all the doubters. I mean, one of those losing streaks, I forget which one, was not only against elite fighters, but also when he had undiagnosed Lyme disease. Like that's a whole part of this as well.
Yeah, that's true. And I wonder which ones he would have won if it wasn't in that case. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible what he's doing. Like you said, he's not beating top 10 guys. Nobody's thinking he could go out and beat Islam Makhachev or he'd even have a freaking prayer. But to be doing what he's doing. He's already booked for UFC 300. Like that's a done deal. Like this, I mean, when the broadcast is mentioning it over and over again, that's a good deal. This is what I do with Jim Miller for UFC 300. I talk to him and I say, "Is there any chance this is your last fight?" And if he goes, "Yeah, I think big card. I've been fighting forever. This is the last one." I don't think he is retiring, but if he says yes, I'm giving him the easiest fight I can find him.
And you're putting it on the main card, even if it's just like the main card opener. Don't bury this man on the prelims for his moment. Put him on. Don't put him on basic cable.
I might, but okay. But if you stack
main card,
yeah, if you stack it so deep, that the prelims don't matter. Like, oh yeah, well, you're getting old man Jim Miller on the pay-per-view, but you're still like getting like stars on the prelims. Okay, but yeah, I'm giving him the guy that he's gonna win. Give him the big moment. Crowd going crazy. If it's not, he's going to continue fighting. He threw some names out, and
out of his weight class.
Do you want to react to those names first, or do you want to give me?
Let's do.
Okay, Paul Felder. How do you feel about it? Give me like a grade on that matchup. What would you give it?
I give it
not like what you think the performance would be, but just like I'm pitching
B
minus. The boss.
B minus. I love the name value. I hate the fact that I think Felder would win.
I don't know what we have with Felder. He's been out forever, I mean, I know he's training, running marathons or some shit, but that's not the same. Whatever. I'm always worried the guy would be like, how old is Paul Felder? Any idea?
36, 37.
Okay.
Like that.
So I would hate doing it for our.
Oh, he's 39. Paul Felder is 39, and he will turn 40 a couple weeks after UFC 300. I like this one better.
Yeah, I don't like it much, so I'm going to give it like a D. All right, Matt Brown. Him moving up to Matt.
D. At best, because here's the thing. Again, I want a winnable fight for Miller. I'm worried that Matt Brown would do to Miller what he did to Diego Sanchez, that we just get Miller losing by an ugly knockout, and New Jersey can't have nice things. Miller goes out like Frankie Edgar did.
Yeah. I don't hate it because I think Matt Brown is shot. I don't hate it. I'd give it like a C.
Okay.
Dev throws out Jim Miller versus Darren Elkins.
Well, considering that Jim Miller, what he requested for UFC 300 even before tonight, like during fight week, he's like, I want to fight at UFC 300 and I want to be introduced in the cage as Jim fucking Miller.
Yeah.
I consider like how better to do that than against Darren fucking Elkins.
Yeah.
Everyone will be like, are those guys brothers or something?
Yeah. When he
had the same middle name.
When he said that, the amount of people that like a bunch of people reached out to me, like some guy was like, did he get the official Shillan and Duffy approval? Jim Miller doesn't need it. Jim Miller doesn't need it. Like he's officially always in. He wants to be called like Jim fucking Miller. Absolutely do. We can add a couple other swears in there too if he wants.
Yeah. We can get the show blacklisted on YouTube for you if you want, Miller. Just hit us in.
Yeah, we could say like Jim and then say the F word in like 30 different languages.
Yeah,
Miller, if he wants. So I'm okay with it. Like a C. Jim the Darren. Sorry, but that was the Matt Brown. Darren Elkins. I love it. Give me your name because I'm going to give you two more names.
I still kind of like Miller versus Guida if I thought there was any chance they'd both retire afterwards.
If he agreed this is his last fight, they both agreed 100% A+. And I mean, I know they've already fought, but whatever. Like when
they've already fought, but you know what? It doesn't matter because they're not holding up any ladders of contention by fighting again. And I've already said what I want to do. Like Clay Guida, very famous, that his brother also We'll talk about that, boss. His brother, also, a former fighter, Jason Guida, appeared on Tough, has walked him out to the cage 40 sometimes, slaps him around before he fights. It's what turns on the power button for Clay Guida. I want them to fight, but I want Jason Guida to slap Jim Miller around, and I want Dan Miller to run in and try to guillotine Clay Guida at the checkpoint, and then have the fight. And then afterwards, Jason Guida and Dan Miller can fight, and we can tell Jason Guida that it's winner eats loser if that helps him sign on the line.
All right, here's another name. I'm gonna keep doing this. Tony Ferguson.
I like it. Yep, A-.
Yeah, I don't mind it either.
I think Miller trucks. I think Miller trucks Ferguson.
I think he kills him right now. I think Jim Miller destroys him. Okay. I gotta give a shout out. Some people put this in the chat, but I gotta give a shout out. The first person I saw, Sherdog's own Sean Sheehan, he says Patty. Jim Miller Patty UFC 300. I fucking love it, dude. A plus. If it's not Jim Miller's last fight, if it's not his last fight, I want to give him a sure win. But you know what? Patty might be a sure win for Jim Miller.
Dude. Okay, a couple of observations about this. One, I know that the so-called troubles in Ireland have been over for a few years, but Sean Sheehan got some like burning animus still going on because he wants that Englishman to get embarrassed under the brightest possible lights. Two, I like it as a matchup, and we were talking about this in the Sherdog editorial Slack tonight during the fights, talking about what might be next for Miller, and it was pointed out if they book Paddy Pimblett versus Jim Miller at UFC 300, Pimblett's going to come in at like minus 225, Miller plus 180. I think Paddy would be the favorite, and I think it would be a Conor-like thing where the line gets pushed during fight week. Okay. Just as the noise cranks, all the UFC hype is going to be.
I think a little buzz has come off him, though. I think a lot of buzz can come off him. You put him in London, like sure. You put him in Liverpool. You put him in what all those third world cities. I'm sure he's huge, but I think he's lost a little buzz. But I love it because to me, I think it's the UFC can go no wrong because eventually Paddy's got to face a challenge. If he loses, so be it. But if he wins, think about the star he is. Now he can I smashed two legends in a row, blah, blah, blah. And if Miller, okay, now this is we might lose all our viewership. This is where people might hate me. Every fight I'm booking Jim Miller, I want to know if it's his last fight. If the last fight I'm giving him a softball, he's good. He's fighting the worst guy in the roster. He's fighting Jordan Levitt, someone else doing the chat, something like that.
No, right. You're calling Tyson Chartier and saying who you got on 10 days notice.
Who do you want to be a UFC vet? Who you got? Who's the kid who joined your team? Who's the kid who joined your team last week?
But what they're doing is they're calling him and saying that, and then they're getting the name and they're being like, "Great, he's fighting Jim Miller in 3 months."
Yeah, like who's the guy who just signed up? Who's the guy who just signed up for like a 1 month membership to lose weight? That's the guy. All right, if Miller beats Paddy, he's already beloved. Probably rised a little bit. I could see some people starting to believe him, like casuals trying to think like, oh wow, this guy, most wins in UFC history. People talking about the future Hall of Fame and all that. Then you use him just to get over the next star. Like you use Pat, you throw Jim Miller to some rising star who murders him. Get that guy over. And then you give him the cans that he's been fighting the last couple of years after that.
Dude, if he beat Miller, or sorry, if Miller beat Pimblett at UFC 300 and walked away, I think that might edge out Robbie Lawler and Chris Lytle for like just the greatest walk-off retirement.
Oh, absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely. All right, we got to move on. I'll give you one more name. Yeah. One more name that I think actually work. I think Bobby Green would be I think that'd be fun.
I agree. I would expect Green to win, but I don't think Miller would make it easy for him.
All right. And the last fight that we'll probably dig in a little deep and then we'll probably buzz through the last 8. Yes. To me, the best fight on the card, the fight I'm really looking forward to talk about. Ricky Simon versus Mario Batista. Mario Batista won a unanimous decision. I love this fight. This is one of those ones where it won't be an all-time. I'm going to talk about this fight for years. 15 years from now, it's not going to be on my list. But if you want a list to me, you want that category of you could pop this fight in and you'd be like, oh my God, how fucking great was this fight? I love this fight. And I love both these fighters. And I'm all in on Mario Batista. I'm all in.
So am I.
All the way down.
This is I'm with you. There were 2 fights on this entire card that we disagreed on, and we split those.
Okay.
And this is the one that you got right and I got wrong.
Okay.
I picked
What's the other
Simone.
one?
You the other one was Miller versus Benitez, where you know you strayed in your faith.
Yeah.
But I picked Simone. You picked Batista, and you know what? I was wrong, and I wasn't like a weird fluky bastard wrong. Like Simone went out and fought well.
Yeah.
Like it's not like he had a bad night at the office. He went out and had a good Ricky Simone fight, and it wasn't enough. And here are a couple things I'd like to point out.
Okay.
One, on the upside, Bautista and the people at MMA Lab. I mean, MMA Lab underrated. Probably a top 5 camp, but just underrated. That doesn't get mentioned nearly enough. But they drew up the perfect game plan to deal with Ricky Simone. You know what Ricky Simone is. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to trust your takedown defense, but then you're going to watch for the overhand right and counter it. You're going to throw more than one punch at a time every time. Like whether you're waiting for the overhand or you're going first, you're throwing multiple punches. And it was just like brilliant work. He went to the body just enough that one, it probably sapped Simone's otherwise great gas a little bit. 2, it gave Simone something to think about when he's changing levels. Oh, he's like, oh, that uppercut's on my face if I happen to be shooting right then. But on the flip side of it, Bob Simpson, sorry to kick that, but here's the thing. I've really been a fan of Ricky Simone ever since his first fight in the UFC. Like his fight with Merab, where he got the weird fluky win. I think that was Merab's first UFC fight and Simone's second or something like that. I've liked Simone ever since. I like wrestle boxers as much as you do, but he's not evolved at all. He is exactly the same fighter he was 6 years ago. He's a classic wrestle boxer, but he doesn't have much variety on the feet, and he's a good but not great wrestler.
Yeah, I agree.
And so he's consistent at getting through guys outside of the top 10, 8 or 10 even. They are outside the top 10. But he's lost to Song Yadong and now Mario Bautista, and it's not because he's falling off, and it's not because he's having bad nights at the office. It's just he may have hit his ceiling. He can still evolve. He's just 31, but the first evolution of Ricky Simone, the one we've got right now, has hit his ceiling. He is a borderline top 10 fighter. Where if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said he's a future contender. He's a future top 5 guy. Depending on how things go, he might fight for a title, but he never really evolved. He's just a slightly refined version of the same fighter he ever was. Bautista is dynamite. I'm in. 6 straight wins. If it's possible to do that quietly, it's only possible in the best division in the UFC. Bautista's done it.
Yeah, dude, I loved everything I saw from Batista. I mean, the dude looks. I mean, he's on, like you mentioned, 6-fight win streak. This is a step up in competition. He looked great. Speed was on, accurate. He showed some pop. Good scramble ability. He got taken down, but his I loved his attitude. He wasn't like gonna play jiu-jitsu on his back. He knew get back to my feet. I like to step in knees. I didn't like the flying knees because as a wrestler, you might land it, obviously knock him out, but also you're getting off your feet. That's what a wrestler wants to take you off. I like stepping knees more when you're trying to, catch wrestlers coming in. Did you see in one of the scrambles? I think it was either the late first or early in the second. Ricky Simone was looking to like jump on a guillotine, and on 2 different times, one was really nice. Batista dragged, like he did an arm drag out of it. I loved it. And what that really impressed me is he wasn't even throwing his calf kick, which is one of his biggest weapons. Like he abandoned it in this fight, and I really think this guy is a sleeper in the division. I love the adjustments he made. I thought he lost the first. I thought he was winning the first. I really thought he had 2 bad moments. One point he was going to throw his knee. He got cracked. He even said to his corner, this is in the first round, I'm not going to do that again. And so that was a moment. And then in the third, but he got taken down, he got picked up and slammed. He got a little too aggressive. He actually hurt Simone, and I think he got a little too aggressive, which gave Simone the chance to kind of fall into his legs. But he scrambled, he got up. And then what I love how the adjustment he did, he started throwing volume, knowing that Simone was slowing down, but wasn't power. It was volume because it was keeping him. I'm being active. I'm winning. I'm still hitting, but also not overextending myself, keeping my hands right here, using my hands as offense, but also as a defense, like that first line of defense in wrestling, instead of winding up and overhand so Simone could time it and get underneath. He wasn't doing that. He's throwing straight shots. I loved it. So like it made his takedown defense strong for that part because Simone was going to have to wrestle him. I'm all in, man. I think like when I say I think he's a sleeper in the division. Like I'm not saying he's going to win the title, but I'm also not putting out of the realm of possibility. Like I'm all in. I love this guy.
And the thing about him is the problem any rising contender has in the bantamweight division is that it's so deep and there's a little bit of a logjam at the top that you have to win a lot of fights in a row. So just it's the landmine thing. Like any fighter, if you make them fight enough times, they're going to trip up at some point unless they're both very good and a little bit lucky.
And he doesn't have that. Sorry to interrupt. He doesn't have that like huge Sean O'Malley can beyond just a star, but transcends over into the casual fans and people who don't follow MMA. They learn O'Malley, so he got a quicker, easier route. He got the shortcut. He got the freaking Mario Brothers Warp Zone. Skip a couple levels.
Exactly.
He's got to do it. He's got to do level 1, 2, 3. He's got to go all the way.
But what I will say for Bautista is you couldn't pick a much better guy to say, okay, I'm sorry, I know you've won 6 fights in a row. You're going to need to win 3 more before you're kind of even on the first screen of the speed dial. He's a guy that's less likely to slip on a banana peel than almost anybody else, just because he's well-rounded. He sticks to a game plan. He makes adjustments when he needs to. And kind of as I pointed out, he's very, very well coached by the guys at the MMA lab. So, I made the point earlier that, okay, Khalil Roundtree, if he's hot, you got to do something to get him to the front now, because you can't say to Khalil Roundtree or Johnny Walker, hey, you got to win 6 fights in a row. Just something crazy is going to happen. Bautista, less likely to happen. He's kind of, I mean, nobody's airtight, but he's closer than a lot of guys.
Yeah. Even in the second round, if you saw at the very end at the buzzer, he shot a takedown on Ricky Simone. It was in deep, and he would have took him down if there was 2 seconds left in the fight, in the round. Excuse me. He called for a fight with Rob Font, which I like the idea of him getting a fight night main event. Like I think he kind of deserves that. I hated the call of Rob Font, and I'll tell you why. I feel like he's already passed him.
Totally agree. Font's lost 4 of his last 5, something like that.
Yeah, Font's got the name because he's a guy who has headlined cards. He's got that more of a name value. But to me, I think Bautista smashes Rob Font.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bautista could handle him on the feet just fine. I think he could take him down easily. So not only do I think Bautista would win, I don't think I'd learn much. It sounds disrespectful to say Bautista by whatever he wants, but I just mean it in the very literal sense. Like whatever game plan they decide to come up with, I think he'd be a huge favorite. He deserves something better competitively, and it's possible to find something that's better competitively and still has some good name value. Like I have some ideas here.
All right, let's hear it.
Obviously, March 9th is a huge night for the bantamweight division. You got 3 huge fights: O'Malley versus Vera, then below that, you've got Song Yadong versus Petr Yan. And below that, but still very important, is Kyler Phillips versus Pedro Munoz. Okay. I would say out of Song, Yan, Munoz, and Phillips, pick a guy out of there that seems appropriate based on what they did that night.
I just love bantamweight. It's so hard to make it. I'm good with all of them.
If out of that, it's like, holy, well, you know what? The winner of Song versus Yan is probably next in line. So what I'm really talking about is the winner of Phillips versus Munoz, or the loser of Song versus Yan. But any of those against Bautista sounds fantastic. Or hell, if Vera gets smashed, Vera would need to take a step back.
You could take the loser of Jan versus like
the loser of
Song.
Jan versus Song, or the
Especially
winner
if
of
Jan,
Munoz versus Phillips.
especially if Jan loses, former champion, they could headline, a fight night. I went with because of bantamweight. I normally don't do this. I normally don't put the new guys on the block, the guys, and these guys, neither of these guys that I'm going to mention are new. I mean, Batista's not new, but you get what I'm saying. Like in the rankings, I hardly ever put two guys together, but because it's bantamweight's the most logjam division, I'll put him against Jonathan Martinez. The two, to me, I put him in the same category. Two rising guys who did it the hard way. Two guys that when they first came to the UFC had zero hype. So I mean, especially Martinez, zero hype. No one expected to make this far. They're on runs. Put them against each other. Find out who the real guy is.
Those are two long win streaks. Would that be 2 6-fight win streaks against each other?
Yeah, I don't know what Martinez is, but
I think it's 6. I think it's 6 as well. I mean, that's the Sonic the Hedgehog thing where one of them is going to go shing and all the rings are going to go flying, just all that momentum, and the other guy's just going to scoop them all up and go running.
Yeah. So, how about Simone? I think he's still fun. He's a name, but
I like Simone versus Font. Do something like that.
I just think it goes back to battle, but you just can't make a battle fight. I'm trying to use Simone's name to get over somebody else. He's still a very, very tough matchup, I think. A lot of people in the chat were bashing him. I still think he beats half the guys on the bantamweight roster.
He is still not lost to anyone good, and against the others,
he hasn't lost to anybody. You said he hasn't lost to anybody.
Sorry, he's not lost to anyone bad. Yeah, he's only lost to very good fighters.
Yeah.
Even if you think he lost to Merab, he's only lost to very, very good fighters. And against the others, the approach is working. So if you're not in the top 10 at bantamweight, it's on you to prove that, you can get past Ricky Simon.
Yeah, I'm going with the guy that the big Marcel. Now he put Basharat. I don't know. Basharat looks incredible to me tonight. I'm all in. Fareed Basharat. I'm doing Simone versus Fareed Basharat. I'll say this now. I loved his little speech at the end of his fight when he said, "You could," like my brother always says, "You could fight us now, or you could fight us in the future, or even better." I love that. Very subtle shit talk. I loved it. That's what I would do.
Bob Timpson throwing out Simone versus Rinya Nakamura. There's a guy that's on the rise. Put him against Simone. That's a name. If Nakamura gets a spectacular knockout or club and sub, yeah.
Timpson just freaking he trolls the whole time. Before that, Phil Hawes took on Bruno Ferreira in the "if they touch your chin, you go out, call me the breeze" fight. And it was Bruno Ferreira winning by first round knockout. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm not going to let you do it how you ask me. The way you asked me, I like to say somewhere in the middle. I'm going to make you pick a side.
Okay.
Was this a good showing by Ferreira or bad showing by Phil Hawes?
Bad showing by Hawes.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still not sold on Ferreira.
If you've got more, go for it.
One thing I do like, I will talk about the positive head. Obviously, there's a lot of positive. He won by first round knockout. You know what I mean? He knocked a guy, not just wasn't bad stoppage. The guy was out cold. So that's good, obviously. The other thing I like is I like that he would use his judo. He shot at one point, he did a foot sweep. That's gonna open up opportunities for him. He's got a judo background, so he's got submissions. It's also going to give him a chance to the threat of the takedown will open up his hands moments. What I didn't like about Phil Hawes, and now this guy, obviously he's been losing a lot. He's been losing in the first round. I mean, his durability is gone. Now, Fahad is a big puncher, so I mean, he can knock on anybody. But his durability is gone. But it hit me tonight watching. It's not just his durability. All the positive you say about him, his speed's gone. His explosiveness is gone. He looks completely shot.
Which That's a rough look, but you know what? If we're talking about a wrestler, we're talking about someone that's been doing a hard thing maybe since they were 8 years old, you know. Um, did it in college. He had some rough fights even early in his MMA career, like got knocked out a few times. He may just be shot. And you know what? If the physical gifts are slipping, it's gonna get bad real quick here. Because at his very best, Hawes was like a poor man's Aaron Pico. Like, because the thing with Pico, even now still, is he's an incredible athlete. He has some elite individual offensive skills, but he's defensively susceptible. And so anyone who's durable or can stick to a game plan can probably beat him in spectacular fashion. Like that's the book on Aaron Pico right now. And that's been the book on Phil Hawes, only more so. And that's when he was still at his peak physically. If that's slipping, this is gonna be bad.
And he still wasn't the level of wrestler that Pico was.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think it was good for the UFC for him to win. You know, younger guy, the newer guy in the block. So you can sell him if Hawes is gone. Before that, Andre Arlovski took on Waldo Cortez Acosta.
Dude,
Cortez Acosta won by unanimous decision. God, dude, talk about it. I don't even
okay, so let me get the good out of the way, so nobody can say I was being unfair to Waldo Cortez Acosta. I said coming into this, if he beats Arlovski, that may actually be his best win in the UFC because he won 4 fights in the UFC, but they were against literally just the lowest level guys they had. He won. On the positive side, he is looking to be in physically better shape each time out. Like he's getting leaner, and that's not the end all be all. I mean, Cain Velasquez was in the Apex tonight, and I think at his best, he was the toughest man that ever walked the planet.
Could have been,
and he showed better power, like because he's tends to be kind of like a water pistol who lives and dies by his jab. But you know what? His right cross, his overhand, like looked pretty good. The problem was everything else. You winning a so-so decision over Andre Arlovski, if you're doing a little salsa dance in the cage at that, you are a joke. Like you are the men's heavyweight Betch Correia, because Betch Correia would do like, little butt shaking dances after beating mediocre fighters. Like beating, honestly, the worst that division had to offer, trying to fast track her to a fight with Ronda Rousey. Like unless you want to just be heavyweight Betch Correia, like leave off the salsa dancing and stay on the Nordic track or the Peloton or whatever you got.
Yeah, I didn't even want to talk about the fight. Like I just don't want to talk about. Yeah, I totally agree. Like Waldo Cortez Acosta got the biggest name in his career win, but didn't look good. Like
no,
he lost. I mean, I don't know if he had fans, but now he's got people who dislike him. Arlovski, watching him fight now feels like a punishment. Like it feels like that part of your job you hate doing. You're like, oh, just get it over with. Like
the Shillan and Duffy show for me.
And like the dude has no power, no hand speed, no kicks, no wrestling, no cardio. Doesn't even grind anymore. He just does a low output point fighting like sparring session. He got exactly the fight he wanted against a low level UFC heavyweight and still couldn't win.
No, he's and ironically, since he beat him already, but he's just a slightly bigger version of Chase Sherman in that way. Like it's not good. And even of other up and coming heavyweights in the UFC that I've kind of been slow to come around on, I still think all those guys are better than Cortez Acosta. Like I think Martin Buday handles Acosta, and I'm not all bought in on Martin Buday.
Well, he got murdered in his last fight.
Yeah, but
yeah. I mean, I agree. And Arlovski, I don't know. I don't want to.
Fighting Arlovski is like playing a fighting video game against a guy with a half broken controller. Like, yeah, do what you got to do to win, but don't celebrate that hard. Like, Like ever since Arlovsky fought Verdum back in like 2007, where they just stood in front of each other like this, like two guys with broken controllers for 15 minutes. I think Arlovsky's controllers has never been right since then, and that's who Cortez Acosta beat tonight.
Yeah, I have a neighbor. He's a nice kid, but he is a ninth grade boy, like diagonal from great family, fantastic family. He he's like my son's best friend. I swear, my son's in third grade. They play basketball and they play video games and everything. So I watch him play basketball sometimes. Look out the window, watch him and my son play basketball, and like he doesn't go easy on my son. He's like a foot and a half taller than my son. Like that's what I felt like tonight. Like he's a guy like he scores on my son and like, oh yeah, like
come on,
yeah,
Ninja Kitty.
Yeah.
I think this is a terrible idea because Tim Sylvia showed up as a kind of promotional face for not Dana White's power slap, but like another slap fighting league. And he looks like he weighs about 375, and each of his hands looks like a whole ass brisket right now. I say brisket because I'm from Texas and barbecue means brisket, but seriously, his hands look like they each weigh 15 pounds right now. Sylvia would murder somebody in slap fight. Just that wingspan, 6'8" dude, just come. Oh,
I don't even know how slap fight works. Like, is it round? Like, how many times do they get to hit it until someone gets knocked out, or is it like certain?
It's a limited number of times.
I don't watch it. I watch some stupid shit. There's some things I won't watch. Like, I watch slap fighting. When I watched pro wrestling, I wasn't into the what do they call those matches? Like Cactus Jack used to do it, where they freaking set each other on fire and shit. And I'm not talking about WWF like hardcore matches, but like I'm talking like the really stupid ones where they're like in Japan and there's barbed wire around the cage and Cactus Jack and Terry Funk are hitting each other with friggin' chainsaws and shit. And like, dude, they have like a tournament. The guy in the semifinals died and shit. Yeah. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's like they're like those kind of. There's a name though. It's like a certain type of wrestling. Like it's professional wrestling. It's like,
and it's stuff that makes like even like ECW and that weird juggalo shit like look tame. Yeah.
I feel that about the people who watch that, and I was I talk about wrestling every single week, like professional wrestling. I loved professional wrestling, and I'd be like, all right, these guys are a little too much for me. That's why I feel slap fighting is like. That said, like if Arlovsky has to hit, I don't know what they do, 5 rounds of like
three rounds. Boss told us 3 rounds, and there's a judge's decision at the end. But how do you even judge that? Is it like Olympic judges where they're just holding up like a 9.1 says the East German judge? Like
I don't know, but Arlovsky would do 3 rounds with somebody and still get somehow lose on the volume. Like
Arlovsky would like miss his. He just wouldn't throw a slap one round.
He just no, I'm taking this round off.
I'm saving my gas.
Before that, a pretty fun fight. We kind of knew it would be fun. Matthew Semmelsberger took on Preston Parsons. Parsons won by unanimous decision. This was a consensus underdog pick. We went 1-1 in the consensus all the pick. We did pick Phil Hawes as a consensus. That was a really bad choice. But this is a good one. We both picked Parsons. Semmelsberger, to me, it was like a passing of the torch. Semmelsberger has been declining for a long time. Every fight he looks worse and worse. His gas tank, we knew it was going to be an issue. It was an issue again. His defensive wrestling is a problem. His output has dropped. And I thought Parsons had the perfect game plan. He closed the distance early, made him wrestle early, which is going to zap a lot of the energy, both in his wrestling, make him tired, but also that danger of that big knockout that Semmelsberger can have early in the fight, most likely, in the first round. And then he opened up his hands second and third round, and then more wrestling later on when he had 2 rounds in the bag. I thought it was a very intelligent fight by Parsons.
Yeah. Keys to victory: move forward, keep him on the back foot, tire him out, wrestle, check. Yeah. And then really turned up the jets once Semmelsberger was getting tired. Agreed.
Yeah. Semmelsberger, it almost seems like the Alex Morono fight crushed his spirit, and like Morono like sucked his soul out of him, because he was a guy that had some big knockouts. Was like, whoa, this guy might become something.
Yeah.
And Alex
Well,
Morono like
wrestled him, like
which
muscled
Alex
him,
Morono
even
can't do.
though, yeah, even though Morono is one of the smaller and like less muscular looking guys in the division, and Semmelsberger is a specimen. I agree, and that killed even my secondary hope for Semmelsberger, because when a hot prospect comes in and has a couple good performances, my first question is, okay, is this person a potential contender? But even below that, he could have settled in as one of the 170-pound action fighters. He could have become this decade's Alex Oliveira, Nico Price, Alex Morono, but he's not even at that level, because to hang with those guys, you at least have to win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But it would be tough for Semmelsberger to do that without favorable matchmaking.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Anything else you want to say about this fight?
Nope.
Before that, Gaston Bolonas took on Marcus McGee. Marcus McGee winning by second round TKO. Marcus McGee, a guy that came in the UFC, no hype at all. One of these guys got a call, right place, right time. Seemed like, oh, nice for you. Got to become, a UFC veteran. You get 2 fights and take your walking papers. This freaking dude looks good.
He looks good. I misjudged him. I misjudged him, even having watched all of his available tape coming in. He's a guy that has blossomed. He's growing under the brightest lights, because he came in, you're like, I don't like a guy debuting that's about to turn 33, especially at bantamweight. He looks good, but not great on the regional scene. Some mediocre fighters gave him way too much trouble, and he looks like a 90s rapper today. He looks like an old rapper. Like,
Yeah.
you'd expect, if you showed me his picture and we're like, yeah, he was in like Brand Nubian, or, for like a year or two after Sadat X left, I would have been like, okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But dude, plus athlete, well-rounded, good power for the division. One of the harder hitters in the division. Like, good stuff, man.
Yeah. So one of the members of the Lost Boys is now 3-0 in the UFC. I'm starting to believe, man. I mean, this fight, Bologna's, former Muay Thai kickboxer. Me and Aaron Bronstetter. I love Aaron Bronstetter. Will you ever hear me say a bad word about that dude? He's the best. We were going on. We were battling a little bit about Bologna's credentials. Like I thought he was being a little nicer, but McGee was smoking him. Couldn't miss, especially the left hook. Great accuracy. I love that he was anytime Bolognese was like throwing at him, he's like, you're gonna eat 5 punches every time you throw. Guys just fight with tons of confidence. One of these guys that I like, he's starting to understand. Like, I bet you if you talk to his coach, I bet you his coach, when you look at his regional record and all that stuff, like not the greatest. And then I think he'd be a guy like, no, you don't get it. He finally understands. Like he understands that he's good. And it was like an epiphany. And now he's fighting like he's never seen. I saw people put some wild things out there saying like, contender of the division. And I'll pump the brakes on that. But I sure hope he is, because he's fun.
Again, time is not on his side.
No.
Considering that we're talking about Mario Bautista and Jonathan Martinez have won 6 fights in a row and are substantially younger, especially Martinez, and they're on the outskirts of the top 10. Like,
Yeah,
McGee, he's got a long way to go. He's going to be fighting a better fighter each time out. And even if he stays healthy and wins all of his fights, say he fights 3 times a year, we're into early 2025 before we're even he's 35 at that point, 34 or 35 at that point. Time is not on the side, but it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch him try.
Yeah. Before that, you talk about a guy who has time. Fareed Basharat, I think he's like friggin' 17 years old or something like that. He took on Taylor Lapidus, probably we've kind of both said a very underrated fighter, and it was competitive early, but Fareed just kept on, kept going to the well, wrestled a lot, and won a decision. I'm all in. I'm all in on both Basharots, but Fareed tonight, I love like Lapilus takedown defense. I mean, Lapilus takedown defense early on was on point. Like you could tell he really worked on it, focused on it. But I love what Basharat did. Wrestling is not just about getting the takedown; it's getting you to work. And he had the mindset, and he was shooting. He wasn't getting frustrated. It's like it's like watching a football game. You don't score on every play.
Nope.
That's what Basher understands about wrestling. You don't have to hit the 50-yard bomb every play. You didn't have to get the takedown. You just get him to work. And the threat of the takedowns, it kept Lapilus from ever getting out of first gear. He was trying to jab, he was trying to get going, and then he was defending a takedown. And then he did everything he could to get it. Tried to get out of his office, defend a takedown again, defend a takedown. Until eventually he couldn't. Fareed would take him down. He'd hold down 5-6 seconds. Oh, he got back up. Next time he took him down, he held down for 15 seconds. Third time he took him down, now he held him down for a minute. And then by the end, he's holding down for the whole round. I think he's a contender. I think this dude's that good. And he, like they said, he's not even close to his prime. Talk me down.
I can't talk you down. I suspected that he was the better Basharat brother. Certainly the one with the more upside. You know, he's a year or two younger. Even though he's actually shorter than Javid, I think he has a better physique for bantamweight. Like, he's not too short for the division. He's immediately fighting better fighters, even in the same division, and looking better against them. So all this did was reinforce that to me. He is definitely the better Basharat brother. And yeah, he has contender upside. Like, and he's got that certain something where he's not going to hit the warp like O'Malley, but he could weave a little bit. There's no way that this guy wins 6 straight fights in the UFC and isn't like headlining a fight night or something. Like, he's not going to get stuck in the same bucket as Jonathan Martinez or Mario Bautista. He's won 3 straight in the UFC. If he wins his next fight, he's headlining a fight night in something with like title implications in the division, like within a year from now. You went mute.
Sorry. You know me, I don't like to rush the prospects, but I mean, I already called for him to fight Ricky Samoa next, so I'm giving him that treatment. What would you do? Like you said, not 6 fights, so let's say to jump up next.
No, Basharat versus Simone, I like that just fine, because Simone, as we kind of covered during the recap of his fight, he's not gotten any worse. He's not fallen off physically. He's just reached his own ceiling where if he doesn't change his approach, he's too dependent on matchmaking. The guys up in the top 8 or 10 are too good for him to just do a 2007 wrestle boxing approach on. Basharat still has to prove he can get it past a guy like that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's a real huge step up. That's
enough name value that, I mean, it could be a co-main on a fight night easily.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Or like a pay-per-view, being on a pay-per-view, but be like the ESPN headliner of a good pay-per-view.
Yeah. Or the main card opener on a bad one. You know, put that one in instead of.
Yeah, I agree.
Or Andrei Arlovsky or something.
Yeah. And you know what? That's actually a loss he could take. I still wouldn't send him back that much.
Sure.
You know, at that age. Speaking of setting back much, Weston Wilson said in the pre-fight talk he wants to be a guy that the fans want to always tune in for because he's one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. I don't think he'll have much more time to tune in for his UFC run as he took on Gene Silva. Gene Silva was like a negative, 4,000 favorite. And he beat the brakes off of Weston Wilson, win by first round TKO. I'm going to guess if I put you on, put you in the box again, like, is Gene Silva? I don't know what he was. There's something like something stupid, like negative
minus 800, minus 800,
negative 800 favorite. Is he that guy? Is he a negative 800 favorite, or is Weston Wilson?
Silva's a solid prospect, but Wilson is one of the lowest level guys to make it to the UFC within the last couple of years. You know, maybe the the lowest, not from New England.
Yeah.
But this in particular was a terrible matchup for him because Silva hits really, really hard, and Wilson he's too hittable. He has terrible striking defense. He's just slow to,
he's not good. The dude
he's not good, and he's not good in a way that just made it a real obvious pick that he was going to get clocked in the first round by Silva.
When we talk about the regional scene, you know what I talk about? Like, there's different regional scenes.
Sure.
There's like LFAs, your Brave FC. I mean, I don't know if that really is, but you're that level. He could not win a title in that level of regional scene.
No.
Definitely not Brave. I shouldn't have even said Brave FC because that's high. But you know what I'm saying? LFAs, like, he couldn't win a CES.
Yeah, dude. Brave CF, 145 title. You're trying to fight Armin Sarukian.
Yeah, I'm saying that. I'm saying I'm saying CF. I'm sorry, I'm saying that backwards. But you know what I mean? Brave. Yeah. This dude, like, you know, some people ask, could he beat anyone in the UFC? I don't think he'd beat anyone in the UFC. In modern UFC, take out CM Punk and Mike Jackson because that was such a freak show thing. You know, Mike Jackson was brought into a guy that maybe CM Punk could actually win. Is he the worst fighter in UFC history? And I know I'm living in the moment.
No. I mean, just going to New England alone, I'd say Chris Matinho and Don Shannis would give him a run for his money. Well, hell, Shannis and Wilson are in the same division. Who wins? I slightly favor Shannis, but it's not a home run.
Shannis is a better athlete, but Wilson could submit him. Matinho is obviously much smaller. It's tough to tell.
Yeah.
Matinho gets a lot of credit because he took a all-time beating, but it was also a guy playing with his food.
Yes.
Like, there's guys in my son's wrestling team that are so good that, like, they won't pin a guy right away. They try moves on him. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm about to tech him. Okay, now I'll pin him. Like, that's what Sean Valley was, you know, kind of felt like. Dude, I don't know if I love Gene Silva or not. Like, the freaking barking with the freaking nerd glasses and the slow walk, and then, like, demonstrating on his coach. In fairness, like, him, like, throwing one punch at his coach was more competitive than the Weston Wilson fight was. But it's so bizarre that I freaking loved it. Like,
the barking got annoying only because he did it so many times. I'm all in for the glasses and the slow walk.
Yeah, I like the slow walk.
Just, like, limit it to, like, 3 or 4 barks per win, and, you know, go on with your bad self.
I just imagine a slow walk with actually an arena and he's doing it, but it's like the prelims and they're about to go to, like, you know, they gotta go to the pay-per-view. They're like, dude, they're like pushing the guy to go forward. I got to shout out Adam Hunter. You know, the comedian Adam Hunter. He's a big MMA guy.
Yeah.
He had one of the greatest tweets I've ever seen. That guy's hilarious. But he wrote, Gene Silva was barking so much that Izzy Adesanya started fondling his testicles. That is an
I'm dead.
So someone give a shout out to our I've talked to Adam Hunter a couple times. He's a good dude. I mean, I don't know him like that, but, like, he seems like a good dude. That's a great one, dude. Adam
he's one of the very, very few people trying to make MMA comedy that has any sort of decent batting average. Like, he's pretty funny.
Oh, he's wicked funny.
Yeah.
He's wicked funny. Yeah. Before that, Nicholas Motta took on Tom Nolan, winning Motta 1 by first round knockout. Tom Nolan came in with a lot of buzz. I mean, he's freaking huge. Was he like 6'2", 6'3"? Yep. You know, the division, undefeated, 23 years old. That undefeated. He got a big knockout in the Contender Series. Dude was marching forward. He was being aggressive. Seemed like he wasn't, you know, the moment wasn't big for him. No jitters or anything like that. And then he was done. Motta starched him. Wow. I don't know what to say. Like, Motta saved his job. Stole a lot of hype from Nolan. I know people jumped off that bandwagon. I don't know what else to say.
This was our other, or no, this was a pick that we both picked Nolan. We were wrong. Here's the thing about Moda. Clearly, he's going to be able to beat some people at 155 pounds. He does hit very hard for even by the standards of the division. Like he's not and may never be Drew Dober or Matt Frivola from a skill standpoint, but just, if they're punching the bag at the Dave and Buster's, he's probably in the same neighborhood in just sheer punching power. And if you can find a 6'2" guy that doesn't tuck his chin, and you can find that chin, you're going to win some fights. I love that his corner was Ray Sefo, Jake Shields, and Julian Erosa. Like, so
I'm going to talk about that later.
The perfect team to like resurrect, resuscitate, preserve the career of Nicholas Mota is Julian Erosa, who never met a highlight he didn't want to be part of, win or lose. Jake Shields, like famously one of the worst strikers of any high-level mixed martial artist in history.
Yeah, that's not why he was there, but yeah.
No, yeah. I thought Jake Shields was like strapped to a rocket or something, or like a missile or something right now. But and Ray Sefo, who I will say no evil about, but it was a hell of a show. I loved it. Like, I'm not mad to be wrong, because if Nicholas Mota wants to go out and win or lose by first round KO in his next 3 fights, I'll be tuning in.
Yeah. And Tom Nolan might want to go back to that rugby career, the professional rugby career that he gave up for MMA. see if the team's still out there that wants him. Did learn that Australian football is very popular. One of the commentators asked us to check out a highlight. I should have. I didn't.
I checked it out. It was pretty interesting, and that's what Volkanovski.
I didn't know there was.
He played Australian rules football. Yeah.
Oh, but they say Australian rules football. I thought that was rugby.
No, it's different.
And is it like NFL football? Like,
I mean, if you look at them, they're dressed more like rugby players.
Okay.
But it's more recognizable. Like, it looks a lot closer to American football than rugby does.
Okay, I'm gonna have to watch. I had no idea what I thought Australian rules football was rugby. Anyways,
like if you watch it, you can understand what's going on. Like, if you watch cricket and you know baseball, you'll have no idea what's going on in cricket. Like, if you watch Australian rules football and you know American football, you can understand what's going on.
Okay. And before that, Joshua Van took on Felipe Bunez. I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong. Van won by second round TKO. I don't know. I mean, I like Van. He's a young guy, very young, so that's what I like. He's clearly a builder. He pressures, wins by pressure. I like the mindset and the adjustments he makes, and that like will under pressure to like drop the first round and come on. But it's 3 fights in a row he's lost the first round. He rise up the ladder. You're playing with fire.
You have to be truly, truly special to make that work long term. I mean, my go-to example is always Brian Ortega, that made his way all the way to a title shot without ever winning a round. Like, he was down to 2 rounds to 1 against like Clay Guida. Like, he literally lost every round he finished until he made it to a title fight. But he's a special talent. Josh Van is a very good talent. I don't know if he's special, so he either needs to prove that he is, or he'll need to get a little different approach. But on the flip side of it, in some ways, at this age, thrust into the limelight the way he has been, I would rather have this than a fighter that goes wild and doesn't know how to pace himself and doesn't know how to make adjustments between rounds. It seems like this might be easier to fix.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. 100% agree. Munez, we talked a little higher on him than I think most people. Definitely the betting lines. Like, I thought it was Van for sure. And then when I started looking at tape study and you agreed with me that, wow, Munez looks much better than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feeling the other way. Even though he won the first round, you can't have like a round and a half of cardio at flyweight. Like, that is kryptonite. Like, that is a big, big, big issue. And he wasn't the one who took the fight on short notice. It was Van. Mm-hmm. Van came in like the 2-3 weeks notice. Yeah, that I'm like, oh man, I like, even though a lot of people would probably put an up arrow on him, I'm putting a down arrow after that. And it could be jitters, could be UFC jitters, could be there's a couple things in there. Could have been the nut shot that he took in the first. He took a good nut shot early. Sometimes those things happen, but not a good showing, man.
Nope, not a good showing. He'll get at least one more chance. He's got some physical tools and some good skills. I mean, he hit Van solidly a couple times in that first round,
Yeah.
where a lesser man might have actually been rocked. So I'm not completely giving up on the guy, but yeah, it wasn't enough tonight.
All right, so we have covered all the fights. Let's get to the fun stuff at the end. Do we have the awards? The official UFC awards.
They are certainly available at this point. Let me take a look here.
All right. As you're looking, I will tell you. And the way we do this, we, we're not guessing who the UFC picked. We try to say what we would have picked. I'll give you a fight of the night and 2 performance bonuses,
which is what we have actually. So
okay.
Yeah.
Do
if
you
you're
agree
in the
it?
chat, at a glance, I'm good with them. I don't disagree with any.
Okay.
So
let's hear
if
what
you're in the chat. You probably know who you would have given, or who got the award. So just let us know whom you would give them to.
Okay. Ankalaev. I mean, in main event, you get a knockout like that, a highlight reel knockout. I'm going to give Ankalaev some money.
Yep.
I'm going to give Mota.
Okay.
I'm going to give Mota. You're a big underdog. You start your guy first round. I mean, there was a lot of finishes tonight. So I think like 8 out of 11 or 9 out of 11 or something like that went to a finish. So it's going to be, there's going to be people not getting money. But those are probably the 2 that kind of stood out to me. I mean, Ferreira, he won by first round knockout.
Oh, I apologize. There was not a fight of the night. There were 4 performances of the night.
Oh, I thought Batista and Simone was for sure fight of the night.
No, 4 performances of the night, no fight of the night.
All right, so I'll give Ferreira one. Okay. I mean, it is what it was against Hawes, but he put him out cold. And man, I'm thinking he was such a huge favorite, but what he did, I'm thinking Gene Silva maybe I'd give one to. Miller, 3rd round is tough, but just the UFC probably gave Miller one, but I don't know if I'd go with him. Oh, McGee. I go with McGee.
Your winners are Magomed Ankalaev, Jim Miller, Bruno Ferreira, and Marcus McGee. And of those 4, the one I'd snip first would probably actually be Ferreira over Hawes. Like, just it.
Okay.
You asked me, and I said it was more down to bad Hawes than good Ferreira.
Sure.
But although I'm not that mad at it, it was still a great knockout. But yeah, Ankalaev turning Walker into like broken Tinker Toys, and Miller, it may not have been a finish of the night, but it was a great performance, like a pillar to post handling of a decent fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was a great performance. I have no issue with Jim Miller. Jim Miller does all the money that he deserves. He gets as much as he can. I'm okay with that. Like, who they pick?
I'd slot Mota in instead of Ferreira.
Yeah, okay.
Mota came in as like a 2-1 underdog to a debuting guy and just clocked him.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. The only thing, Simone and Batista, that was such a good fight that I feel like they're kind of getting screwed because of how many stoppages the UFC trying to make right because we had so many stoppages. But that fight was so good. I think they should have got fight of the night.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, especially because like when you're Simone and you went through a war like that and you don't get your win bonus, and then you're like, man, you don't get the fight of the night, nothing. But let's go. Let's do the Bulls and the Bears.
Okay.
The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference. When the stock's going up or the market's going up, it's a bull stock. When it's going down, it's a bear stock. You want to be on the Bulls list. You don't want to be on the Bears list. We do it hockey style 3, 2, 1. Do you want to do Bulls or Bears first?
I'm fine doing Bears.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah. Do you mind if I go first?
Go for it.
All right. So these are the ones who had a bad night. You don't want to be on it. My number 3, I'm going to go with Tom Nolan. I mean, anytime you lose your O, that's not good. UFC debut, get knocked out like very quickly. Not a good showing. I mean, there's a lot of people saying hype machine, this and that. He's still really young, but Yeah, you can't have a lot of confidence picking him moving forward. My number two, we kind of been bashing him a lot, but I don't think we have many more opportunities to. And that's Phil Hawes. The guy, he at one point he had some hype. Like he had some hype. I know, next John Jones, all this, and then he didn't live up to it. Then he kind of had this resurrection story where he got on the Contender Series, won, started winning some fights in the UFC, winning spectacular. It was like, oh man, maybe he's finally, kind of this like post hype sleeper. And now he's lost 4 out of 5 fights, been knocked out. The dude looks washed. And my number one, it's gonna be Ricky Simone. Really fun fight, war, but the problem is he's lost back-to-back fights in a division. You talked about it, where you got to be on this huge winning streak to win a title. I think it's safe to say he'll never win a UFC title, but he's not even in that echelon anymore. He's dropping way down out of the rankings. And he's got to go on a run. And at his age and his style, I just don't think it's happened. So to me, his stock is way down. Ben, what do you got?
I agree with all of yours, so I won't come up with 3 more of my own. I will just chime in on Hawes that completely co-sign on this. Obviously he's not the next John Jones anymore, but for a guy that came out, and especially with the bleached hair, looks like Kevin Randleman. He's not even Kevin Randleman, because Randleman would come out and just not get out of first gear and not pull the trigger despite being theoretically capable of grabbing the other guy and throwing him to the third row. But Randleman wasn't just getting destroyed.
No.
Like this, yeah. I much as I kind of pumped him up on the preview and thought he fought well, Taylor Lapalus, he's gotten better, but as long as he continues to skip leg gear, people are going to be able to take him down, and he's still the bantamweight Cyril Gane. And I'll, that's all I'll do. Otherwise, I'm just going to start rattling off all the losers. We've covered the rest of it.
Let's go to the Bulls. This is the list you want to be on. These ones whose stock went up. Ben, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Stock up. Preston Parsons. He was the underdog. And even if you and I agree that Semmelsberger was, is in free fall, he wasn't free falling fast enough that Parsons wasn't a moderate underdog here.
Yeah,
and Parsons not only showed himself to, be a fairly skilled guy, but showed that he knew the way to a win against Semmelsberger. Like Semmelsberger, if you can follow the right game plan, his weaknesses are there to be exploited. Parsons did exactly that. He got a win he really needed, because this was the last fight in his first deal, and to be 2-2 and coming off a win rather than 1-3 and coming off a loss is a whole different story for his future with the promotion. Mario Bautista showed out huge. Just roll back to our talk about what's next for him. It's really hard to get into the title picture in this division, but he's at least to the point where we can count the number of fights it would be. Number one, dude, Jim fucking Miller. Like I said, there's no smoke and mirrors. He is legitimately, arguably fighting as well as he ever has. It shouldn't be possible. It isn't human. And unlike the Arlovskis and Overeems and Shoguns of the world, he hasn't done it by turning into a boring fighter. He's also getting more finishes than ever before. He's got a good gas tank again. Like, he's all of a sudden, Jim Miller is a guy that I'm excited to tune in and watch. I'm not just, oh, hey, he's on the card. That's cool. Great night for Jim Miller.
Yeah, I had Jim Miller and Mario Bautista as my top 2 picks. So yeah, I totally agree. So I give you 3 different ones. I'm going to go with Marcus McGee. 3-0 in the UFC, 3 stoppages. People are going really excited. The dude looks good for a guy. I said earlier that he didn't have a good record. I shouldn't have said a good record. He had 1 loss coming in the UFC. But again, all the intangibles, his age and everything. Not a guy that you heard a lot of people, prospects to watch or anything like this. Dude looks great. My number 2, I'll go with Fareed Basharat. Again, he's also 3-0. We're talking about him fighting contenders, former contenders, guys who's headline, UFC cards. His age, this guy's the limit. And I guess my number 1 would be Magomed Ankalaev. Walk off knockout. We're talking about him, fighting for a title, unbeaten in 12 fights. Not all wins because some weird circumstances, but still, This guy might be the best guy in the world right now. So those are my bulls. Let's do
Real quick. Generally speaking, man, rematch Ankalaev is going to be with motivated BJ Penn and Chuck with that look in his nose, and all the cliches. Like, you don't want rematch Ankalaev. Anyway,
Yeah,
please go ahead.
that's it. Let's stay naked. I got a really big cut list. So the cut list is pretty self-explanatory. Both me and Ben have a fighter on our list. We allow the UFC to get rid of them to make room for other Dana White Contender Series type people to come in. I have 4 on my list.
I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 as well.
All right. So Weston Wilson, obvious. I know you got him on your list.
Out.
Yeah, he might die in the cage. So Weston Wilson is gone. My next one. I'm trying to figure out. I'll go with Phil Hawes. The dude lost 4 out of 5 fights, all by first round knockout. I don't think it's. I think it's going to continue to look like this. Did you have Phil Hawes on your list?
Phil Hawes was on my list.
All right. I'm going to give you the one that's probably not the most obvious pick. So this one you might have saved. But he's lost 4 out of 5, including 3 in a row. I'm going to go Matthew Semelsberger.
Matthew Semelsberger was on my list.
All right. How about this? We'll switch it up. You give me your last one and see if we go unanimous.
My last one is Andrei Arlovsky.
Oh, the former UFC heavyweight champion is officially on the Shillan and Duffy cut list. I also had the Pitbull. Yeah, just I don't think you should fight anymore. But unfortunately, I have a bad feeling we might see him again.
So Arlovsky versus Belcher in bare knuckle in July.
Oh God.
And Belcher.
No, I don't mind if he goes to bare knuckle because I don't watch that. So yeah, I don't go watch it. Like, I don't want him to fight. I don't want brain damage or anything. I just, yeah. How about dude seriously? You got to do seriously?
I mean, I kind of
used them all.
I kind of used them all. I kind of spit freely on the, on the during the show. Like, I was amazed by Mota's corner and like just never stopped being amused by that the whole time. Aside from that, I think we've covered it all. Just like that collection of dudes, it's almost like you were like, okay, we're in Vegas. Find me the weirdest corner you can that's like available tonight. And you got like 3 dudes that were in Vegas for different reasons. Probably, yeah.
I'm gonna double down on that for dude seriously. Because, not only did he have that corner, but Michael Bisping asked him, about, his striking and getting the knockout. And he started thanking his coaches and mentioned Jake Shields. If you ever get asked a question about striking, Jake Shields should never be in the sentence. Like, dude, seriously. Gene Silva's entire post-fight interview with I'm going to demonstrate what I did on my coach, to barking, to glasses. And then you see him leaving the cage, and there was like a female security guard, and he like awkwardly put the glasses on her, and she like didn't want to. And
because they were all sweaty, dude.
Yeah, like, dude, seriously. Yeah. And my last one, this is just continue to make fun of Michael Bisping. I like Michael Bisping, but he asked Josh Mann, and it seemed like he has every fighter a similar question, but he straight up asked Josh Mann, how far are you going to go in the sport? Like, why ask that question? Like, is he going to say, like, of course he goes, oh, I'm going all the way. I'm going to win the UFC title. And it's like, what's he going to say? I think this might be as high as I'm going to get. Like, first fight of the night, prelim. Like, I won 3 in a row. Like, this is probably, I'm kind of on borrowed time, to be honest. I'm surprised I won this one.
I mean, now that you mentioned it, maybe I'll just retire. That's
like maybe I'll make it up to mid card. Like what do you expect him to say other than I'm gonna win the UFC title?
Can we circle back around to the dude seriously for 1 second? I'm still thinking about Mota's corner. Now, remember that PFL purchased Bellator at the end of last year. The new combined promotion, you can make a good case that it's the second biggest promotion in the world. Like Bellator, most people would have said was, and PFL was certainly in the top 5. like the combined PFL Bellator, it's either that or one championship for the second biggest promotion in the world. Ray Sefo is the president of PFL. Yeah. He's not a VP of something. He is the president of your largest competitor is walking a prelim fighter out to the cage as he fights probably for his job in an otherwise meaningless fight. Like, picture like Chatri Sichitong, like walking out Josh Van to the cage. Think of Scott Coker, walking Marcus McGee out for his fight.
In fairness, though, I can't think of what's the guy's name now. The head guy of the PFL. It's not. I mean, Sefo's.
He's the president. He's not the CFO.
Yeah, who's the guy? I can't think of his name.
I can't either. Like, it's completely slipping my mind right
someone
now.
Put it in the chat for us. That's really embarrassing. But like, that's like the face. He's the face.
Yeah, he's the Dana White though.
Yeah, he's the Dana White.
Like, White owns 9% of the UFC, but everyone's like, he's the head of it.
It is pretty amazing.
Now I want to see. Now I want to see Dana White walking Demetrius Johnson out to a fight in one championship.
That's pretty funny. I mean, he kind of did with Chuck Liddell and Pride.
Man, he learned his lesson. Never again.
Yeah.
No. What he'd do is he'd walk out DJ's opponent.
Don Davis. That's it.
Thank you, Don Davis. Don with two ends. Yep.
Yeah. Just to screw with people. Yeah. What is it the time to like train guys and still run an organization?
Yeah. I don't think he does.
Yeah. What would you give the overall grade for the card?
A-.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like on paper, I gave it a much lower grade. So I think I walked in with expectations of a C+ card or a B- card, and I got like, what could this card possibly do for me? It could settle Ankalaev in his real place in the light heavyweight pecking order, and it could give me some gnarly finishes and something to laugh at. It gave me all three. Check. A-.
Yeah, it had everything you wanted. I was A+. The problem is Andre Arlovski was on the card in the worst fight possible. The score was so low, but it pulled the rest of the card down. So I just gave it a B. Just for that,
good.
that alone. How about the listener of the night?
Oh man, listener of the night. I don't want to give it to somebody who just like had a hot first quarter and then disappeared. Anthem, Tardif, and Davis Oswalt were both fantastic. Bob Chimpson, just man, third round Bob Chimpson is a man to be reckoned with because he's killing. Ninja Kitty made me laugh out loud a few times. I'm leaning Davis Oswalt. He was the first person to make me laugh in the chat tonight and put up a couple like actual interesting points. Congratulations.
Yeah, Bob Chimpson, I want to give it to him, but like every other thing he writes is trolling. So I'm gonna give it Ninja Kitty. Ninja Kitty had some really fun points. You already mentioned them, but everyone's great as always.
Yeah.
So there you go. Ninja Kitty is my listener tonight. So first one of the year. So if you're tallying up who's in the lead right now, Ninja Kitty and who did you get?
Davis Oswalt.
Oh yeah, David Oswalt. Yeah. So
yeah.
There you go. They're leading the pack. So we will be back this time next week. It's a big one. UFC 297 UFC pay-per-view. Sean Strickland defending his middleweight title, which still seems weird to say, for the first time against his rival Dricus du Plessis. And honestly, I don't know if you saw. Did you see the preview they did today, right before the main event?
Mm-hmm.
It was actually one of the dopest ones I've seen.
Well, its only job is to get you more excited for the fight than you otherwise would be. A+.
Yeah, it did a good job. So.
Like, when Connor's going to fight Khabib, you could do nothing and you'd be fine. It's still going to sell 1 million. Like this, you have to tell people why they should care.
Yeah, it worked. And it worked for me. It actually gave me some goosebumps. So got me excited for that. So, but we'll be back. We'll be talking about that. This is the Shillan and Duffy recap show. We believe we go deeper than anybody else does. So we thank you. We thank everybody in the chat. If you listen the next day, that's cool too. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all that stuff that other one asked you to do. We never asked you to do. Please do that for us. And we'll see you guys next week. Preview coming out too.